Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Prime Sports NASCAR, Prime Sports Radio Network, as we wrap up what happened on Wednesday night at Martinsville and preview the race at Homestead on Sunday. We have a lot to talk about, actually, on the show. There has been a lot of interesting stories and subplots since the race. We're going to talk a little bit about dehydration with drivers in the NASCAR series. I haven't seen this much dehydration. But maybe I missed something, and that's why the experts are here to answer my question. We'll talk about the Confederate flag. That's, of course, a huge story this week. The new date for the race here at Homestead Miami Speedway and whether that will impact our handicapping on this race. Because when you go to a racetrack to win a championship, and some drivers go there and they don't even feel like maybe it's a race that they should get involved with, well, the psychology changes when now everybody is trying to win a race, not for a championship, but just for points and, of course, a W to get into the playoffs. Of course, we'll have our picks, and we'll also find out what's going on with fans, because it appears that we've got some momentum with fans starting this week a little bit, but actual fans at Talladega. Okay, let's wrap up what happened, guys. First of all, at Martinsville, and then we'll have a lot to talk about. Martin Truex Jr. and CJ, you were not on the air at the time that I was giving my picks, even though we talked about the picks. Well, we gave our picks, of course, with our reports that we post on the website every week. But we didn't talk about it because you and I were the only ones that picked Martin Truex Jr., and I had said that I wasn't going to take him unless he won. But I said on the air, I'm taking him on Wednesday night just because of the fact that if he wins, he basically will get my money back. And that's the way I looked at it. And Eric agreed that we still don't look at it as, or at least until Wednesday night's win, that he was someone we could trust to put big money on at a short price. But maybe now that he finally breaks through with the win, our minds can change on Martin Truex Jr. officially.
Yeah, I think that's totally the case. He's obviously now completely on the same page with his new crew chief. The problems that they had earlier in the year, as Eric pointed out multiple times, were just their ability to finish out the race. There's no question that they've been fast. They haven't had the same type of problems, I guess, maybe that Kyle Busch has had, but they also haven't had the same success as Denny Hamlin. But it was really just a matter of being able to carry that early race speed all the way through to the finish. When I did the choice for him in Martinsville, it was based on the fact that he completely dominated that race last year, over 400 laps led, and with 2 stage wins last week or the week prior, or Sunday going into Wednesday night's race into Martinsville. That's a lot of momentum behind somebody coming to a track where he dominated the race the year before. So I thought he'd be a good play. I wasn't entirely convinced that he would make it all the way to the finish, but I did expect him to be in there with a shout. And certainly, it was kind of an opposite type of race for him than he's had from the rest of the season, because he wasn't all that strong early on. But he came forward and led 132 laps and won in the final stage, basically.
Yeah, and this it looked like late in the race when Ryan Blaney was making that late charge to get to second, Eric, that maybe he could catch him or make it interesting. But maybe he just wore out his tires getting all the way to second. That's quite possible. Truex was cruising. He already had that 3-second lead, and I'm sure that may have had a lot to do with it. But for Ryan Blaney, again, it's just incredible because we kind of talked about this at the beginning of the season, that I was looking this season as Ryan Blaney's season that we compared to what Martin Truex was going through a few years ago before he finally broke through, when he kept having these problems when he should have been winning races. And we're seeing that with Blaney. Now, maybe this is his year to still have problems, win a race or two, and then next year's his big breakout. There's still time for him to break out this year. But once again, problems on pit road. Otherwise, I know he didn't lead the number of laps that, say, a Logano or a Truex did. I don't even, what was his final lap count, Blaney's?
41? 34, something like, yeah.
Really?
So right,
but I thought Blaney had the best car.
Yeah, you can make a case that for the whole season. It just seems like he's got the quickest car. Just something has kept him out. Like you said, I think it was right front tire he said he burned off trying to catch Truex. Just had nothing for him when he came through. So if there was a late race caution, Blaney was clearly going to win that race. He was quicker than Truex, but when you wear your tires so quickly coming through the field like he had twice that race, He had nothing left in the tank. But yeah, I would say he was arguably the quickest car on Wednesday night, and you can make a case for the season. I mean, you look at how strong he's been. He's got now 3 top 3 finishes in the last 4 races. I mean, he's right there, which is going to be a little difficult to handicap for Sunday just because his past Homestead starts, but which I'm sure we'll get to here in a bit. But on the season, yes, Keselowski and Logano have won 2 times apiece, but I would say Blaney consistently has got the quickest car out of the group.
Okay, so let's then talk about, and I want to bring everything in with Blaney and Truex and so forth, but let's also talk about Kyle Busch and what's happening there, because I know Hamlin had a bad race, but we don't really need to get into it because Hamlin seems to have a really bad race and then a good race and then a bad race and a good race. But Kyle, it looked like he was we all had him last week. He was our consensus pick. And then it's like within a few laps, he was done. What happened?
His brakes is from what on a scanner, what I was listening to, they started off great and even made the comment like, oh boy, I feel like the field's in trouble. Because he went from, I don't know what he started, 8th, 9th, somewhere around there, and up to like 2nd or 3rd quickly. And then the brakes just went away. There was like a right rear rotor for him. Something was up with the brakes, and they just couldn't get it dialed back in. And
are you willing to forgive that then? Actually, just because I guess not, because taking a look, well, you have, because you're the only one, I believe, that took Kyle Busch this week. So you forgive that what happened on Wednesday as a fluke situation, and maybe the momentum they had coming into Wednesday night, we'll see that on Sunday continue.
Yeah, I mean, because that is flukish. I mean, and this is where the no practice thing I really like, because you see situations like this. Because Martin Truex Jr. after Atlanta alluded to that on part of the reason that their speed is a little bit off. Yes, he acknowledged that Chevrolet has improved, but the lack of practice, whatever they're missing, they can't find it over that race weekend because they don't have practice. They're literally going in blind to these races and just guessing. And that's what they did with Kyle Busch's car. It was probably a little bit too much, too aggressive on the brakes on the right side, where now they know. So yes, it could have been used as a throwaway race. I mean, is he going to go the whole regular season without a win? No. Absolutely not. He'll find a win somewhere and get in the playoffs. So now if we go to Martinsville in the fall and we don't have practice, they've got 500 laps of practice of what not to do to come back on. So, I don't put a whole lot of stock in that. And the drivers have all said now that they yes, could they use practice? Yes, because it would eliminate, like Ryan Blaney, same way. He's like, man, if we would have had 50 minutes of practice, I would have found out where the issue is and we could have done better. But I kind of like without the practice, because if you had practice and these big teams figure out how to make their cars better, that eliminates the action, which we saw, which I thought was pretty well on Wednesday night. A little bit of action all the way through the field.
Actually, so, I thought the same thing, CJ. I thought that this was, did Martin Truex Jr., when you look at the final results and you see how much he won by, do we say, oh, yeah, another boring race, the winning driver dominated? But that really wasn't the case. We had a handful of drivers at different times of the race that looked like they might be the top driver, and we actually had, I thought, just as much passing for the lead in that kind of situation as we maybe had from drivers 5 through 15, which was kind of refreshing. So, all right, did we want to see a driver dominate? No. Is this the type of track that we're ever going to see a close race at the end? I think maybe once every 10 years, probably. And it's just the way the track is. I think you have to get it at the right time for 2 cars to be right there at the finish, battling it out. But if we could see this type of racing at Martinsville, and maybe the night race had something to do with it, maybe going under the lights, then, well, I'll take it. We'll take it.
Yeah, I was not terribly disappointed with it at all. In fact, to me, it kind of played out like 3 totally different races. I think at the beginning, Eric Almirola jumped off to the lead. He led a few laps, but then Joey Logano took off and looked like he was the car to beat. And then after that, Jimmy Johnson really came on strong, and we weren't really talking about Truex yet at that point. Logano carried that early or that first stage speed into the second stage, but then Johnson by the end had come out on top and was, got the stage win, but then start off in the final stage, which was more than twice as long, I think, as the first two stages. Mm-hmm. To have Truex fight his way forward. You've got Brian Blaney, who's trying to chase him down. I think the other thing that made it really interesting, and this played out right in the very first couple of laps by the time we even got to that competition caution, was just how badly the tires were wearing. So I think that, in addition to the brake issues at a place that you normally get brake issues at a place like Martinsville, you put those two factors onto it and a short track race, and I think you've got a good recipe for what we want to see happen in the series versus somebody driving away from it. So I agree. I think a night race with these types of stages with the tire wear, make it difficult, no practice, I think end up with a result.
And by the way, shouldn't they now, if they are thinking of no practice most of the time, let's say, and maybe, or shouldn't they be thinking about possibly, okay, if there are two races, if there are two races at one track in one season, then why don't we race both tracks in the same week? A Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday thing. So that first race is like your practice. Then everybody gets to come back and you see how they fare when they return. And then maybe you allow them to practice at tracks that only are there once a year. Does that sound like something that they might think about?
Yeah, I've been an advocate for that. Yeah.
I think they would. I mean, the schedule that we have now it's a necessity because of the fact that everything was called off. So they're doing everything they can to squeeze as much racing into what left of the season they have. But I think in doing so, they never would have considered this before, I don't think. The closest we would have got would have been 2 weeks from now at Pocono, where you've got the back Saturday and Sunday. But I think now with the midweek races, with having to go without practice, I think this is opening their eyes to a lot of unique types of things that they can do to make the racing more interesting. So I totally support having a Sunday race and a Wednesday race, or a Wednesday race and a Sunday race, and have the practice in between those 2 days, like a small test session. I think that'd create better racing, much more excitement, probably even more interesting for everybody, even the casual fans, as you go along.
And does it make more sense? Why do they do the Wednesday instead of, say, Thursday? Let's say if they have a race at the same track that week and they can race on Wednesday or Thursday and then return on Sunday, why Wednesday instead of Thursday?
Eric may know better than I. I'm just guessing because it's halfway through the week, but they do have a Thursday night race coming up when we get to Kansas, July 23rd. They're going to be a Thursday night race at that track. So it's not that it can't be done, but you're probably right. If you want to have less money spent, less time at the track, then make it a Thursday versus a Wednesday. If you're going to do two in 1 week.
Isn't Thursday in the middle of the week? You have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, Friday, Saturday, or I guess it doesn't matter. It's one or the other, really.
Yep.
So is there any? That's why I'm just wondering, Eric. Have you found out why they chose Wednesday instead of a Thursday?
Yeah, because if you look at the races that they're racing, two of the same, like Darlington, Charlotte. Martinsville's a little different, but for those races, it's because they just raced that Sunday, and Wednesday was the quickest turnaround because you had Xfinity or truck guys in between there. So they thought, okay. And then, so they didn't want to go Wednesday and then wait until Sunday. It was always Sunday and then Wednesday. And then, so to go into the next weekend, it gives TV, it's kind of TV driven, because TV has to have time to get their equipment packed up, loaded into the next track.
Okay.
Like for Martinsville, for example, I found out if that race got rained out, they weren't going to run on Thursday. TV didn't have enough resources to get everything torn down, or run a race on Thursday, torn down, and then go to Homestead. So
they would have just canceled it. Okay.
They were going to either move it to the following week or run a doubleheader in Homestead. Okay. So I think eventually, if we see two races at the same track for like next year's schedule or future, it's going to be the same weekend like Pocono's doing.
Oh, it'd be a whole weekend.
And then the weeknight races would be reserved for like an Iowa coming in, or a Gateway, or somewhere like that. A weeknight race would be like your one stop there. So But yeah, if we see a doubleheader in the future, it'll just be a weekend show.
Okay. All right. Now, the dehydration, watching these guys dehydrate over the last couple of weeks, whoever wants to jump up and answer. And again, I don't remember seeing this. Of course, we've heard it over the years. I've seen guys have these situations over the years. I've never seen it happen in back-to-back weeks. What's going on?
Yeah, I've actually heard from a couple drivers about that. Like Keselowski said, on Atlanta, go to Atlanta. You're typically not racing in Atlanta in the middle of summer or start of summer in June. That's the reason the race, when it was running Labor Day weekend, it was always a night race, or it was in November when it used to be in the past, or early in the spring, like March.
So it's more of that as opposed to how condensed the schedule is.
It's combined of both.
Okay.
So like he mentioned, like, look, we ran 500 miles in 90-degree humid temperatures in the middle of Atlanta in the day. And like he mentioned, 500 miles was too long. And then you turn around on a Wednesday, just a couple of days later, you run 500 laps on a short track. And they have those cars on short tracks all buttoned up. So there's not a lot of airflow coming into them because you're faster with the less airflow getting in. So it's like you're sitting in just a sauna. For even though it was a shorter race, it's still 500 laps. And now you're going to turn around and go to South Florida on a Sunday and upper 80-degree temperatures and high humidity this Sunday. So I think you're going to see more of it. Tyler Reddick made a good point on the conference call yesterday that he said for his case, he agreed with Keselowski about those points. But he said, again, the lack of practice, these guys, they're sore. It'd be like if you competed at a high level in a sporting event, or even if I went and shot basketball in my driveway for an hour, I'm going to be sore in a little bit. I haven't used those body parts in a while. And then you're going to hop in and do the same thing a couple of days later. You're already sore, but without practice, you're just kind of guessing how the inside of the car should feel. And then after so many laps, you could get like, oh man, I should have adjusted the seat a little bit, but you're too late. You can't do that during a race. So all those factors combined is what's causing this, and I think we'll see it again Sunday. And then it'll probably start tapering off now that we get more of a schedule. We got
to do it back-to-back.
That will be interesting. If it's real high temps, but they shorten those race lengths too, though. It's not like 200, 400, or 500-mile races in consecutive days. Yeah, so
you don't want to do that, especially in Pocono.
No, it'd be the same race. Like, I don't know. I like the format of the second race, but I don't think it's going to make a difference. But
all right.
So yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's why.
Okay, now let's talk about the big topic of the week, the Confederate flag deal. And look, I'm going to just tell you right now. I mean, I'm completely ignorant on this subject. I'm not, even though I live in the South. I have no idea about this topic. Of course, I've heard about it. You know about it, but you still see it at, like, I don't know. I think you still see it at Ole Miss games. I think. I know they've kind of gone away from certain aspects of it, though, whether it's whether it's using it or more or whatever. But it's just something that I've never really, I don't know, it just never comes up in my life, or I've never heard it really come up in sports for years. So when they brought it up and about eliminating it, it just came out of nowhere. But then, of course, okay, now it's obvious why they're doing it. But then, you hear what the commissioner said, and the vice president of, what is he, the vice president of NASCAR, and the chief racing development officer, Steve O'Donnell. And I don't understand what this guy's saying. He goes, first of all, he starts off by saying how this is regarding the fans that are upset about it. I say I feel sorry for them. I'm sad. Okay, let's just stop right there. So you're sorry for them and you're sad for them. All right, well, aren't you doing it because most people believe anybody that carries it is racist? So you're feeling sorry for racists. That's what that says to me. Okay. Well, if you want to, does just that part of the comment, what does that mean to you guys?
To me, I think he was saying he feels sorry for those people and calling them out as being racist, more so than he feels sorry that they're upset that that happened. That would be it to me. I think, NASCAR, the Confederate flag controversy at NASCAR races has been going on for a long time, as long as I can remember. And there's always been calls for the NASCAR to come out and say something about it. But, the South is their roots. There are still state flags in the South that have the Confederate flag as part of their flag, their state flag.
Well, let me ask you then, when those people, what is the percentage of those people that feel proud about the Confederate flag? What is the percentage of them that are truly racist? Would you guess? More than 50%?
I don't know
less than 50%?
I don't know if I'd have a guess. I don't know. From not being from the South or live in the South, I don't know if I could intelligently speak for that.
I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming that, again, if you're that's why I'm saying, if you're taking it down and away from them, and he's saying, all right, so by the way, I understand what you're now saying. It clarifies what he meant, and that's important. Mm-hmm. But let's go on. He goes, okay, but for as long, let's see, the amount of people that are talking about NASCAR, that are now interested in NASCAR, that now feel like it's a potentially safe place to actually go and watch a race, which I can't imagine someone would feel it wasn't in the past. But that was true. And so to be able to open our sport to all, I'll take it all day long. When was NASCAR ever not a safe place to go watch a race? What is he talking about? Am I missing something? You're
I think he's talking about
a lot more than I am, Eric.
Yeah. And
I'm not talking about the 1%ers. I'm not talking about the less than 10%ers. What is he talking about?
I think you say, because if you go to a race in the South, a NASCAR race, there's times there have been, if you're looking, you don't have to be looking very hard, you could find a Confederate flag,
I would think that would be normal, because that's where, because we know that there is still probably a less than 5% of population in this country that are truly still have racist roots in them. Where would you find those people? In the South. So, what would be their favorite sport? NASCAR, you would guess. So I would not be surprised that I would see that at the racetracks. But there's a big difference in finding them at the racetracks and not feeling safe if you're black to go to a NASCAR race.
Yeah, and a lot of NASCAR races, a lot of fans, too, are welcoming. Everybody likes to see a first-time fan, see somebody there. So as far as, like, racism at the track, can it happen? I don't know. I can't intelligently speak because I haven't seen it. Granted, I'm in the media center or press box lately, and then when I was little, I wasn't old enough or really know what to look for. But I get what they're saying with the Confederate flag and what that flag's meant in the past. And I agree with them as far as, you know what, let's just eliminating it because they've tried this in the past, where if you had a Confederate flag and you came to the gates, they just asked for free of charge, we'll exchange it for an American flag or a track flag, a driver flag of your choice. Just what can we do to make this? Because they said they see it as almost like threatening, not necessarily like a NASCAR race was a threatening situation, but for what the Confederate flag meant and for people of color, it'd be like if they're walking into that environment, it could be intimidating,
and
per se.
I completely agree.
So, and basically what O'Donnell's saying is like CJ said, he feels bad. He feels bad if your mindset is you're mad at NASCAR for taking this away because he feels like basically you are racist if you think that. And NASCAR is not trying to say, look, we want to take your flags away or we want you. We're just saying what you do outside of our property is your choice. We want to make this environment welcome for all. We don't want to turn anybody away. We don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable, which would be like any business. Like you never want to turn any customer away and make them feel uncomfortable, no matter their color, nationality, religion, race, anything. NASCAR needs to bring fans in, not turn them away. So he's basically saying we're welcoming all. And if you're turned away by a decision like this, then I feel sorry for you. Then you are part of the problem that we're trying to move away from anyway. So we want to shed that stigma because let's be honest, like a lot of people think of NASCAR as a redneck, Southern hillbilly, beer drinking, Confederate flag flying sport. And they've done a good job of getting away from that over this last decade or so. And that's what we talked about with the Kyle Larson thing this spring about setting them potentially back. So they're trying everything they can to move forward. And I thought they had a good week in that manner of doing that and trying. But the other factor is that we've also talked about, how are they going to enforce this? They never mentioned how they're going to enforce this. It will be difficult because you're not going to search everybody's vehicles for a flag. And what we're talking about are people in the infield.
You have to,
because
security. You just, as soon as the flag goes up, you get security right after the individual, and you throw them out of the racetrack.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's what's going to end up. But does it get unruly and take away from the event for others around you? I mean, there's so many ways. And plus, saying this now is a perfect time without fans in the stands, the amount of fans that you're going to get, because the people that he's talking about that he feels sorry for, they may not go anymore. So you might have alleviated the problem anyways. You might have turned them away. So,
and that's why I agree. Believe that, again, I'm just guessing, that if you carry a flag like that around, you're racist. I just have to believe that that's the case, because if it's not, then I don't think they do this. But then again, there's been a lot of we talked about it the other day, a lot of white guilt lately, a lot of peer pressure with these big corporations, with the NFL, with Roger Goodell. So you don't know whether or not, hey, you know what? Even though there's only 20% of them that carry a flag or racist, we're still going to get rid of it anyway. That's definitely, I could see them doing it, but I would think that, because I can't think, it doesn't make any sense to me why else you're carrying the flag, unless you have these really deep, long roots of something that was really, hundreds of years. Your grandpappy's grandpappy was in was fighting for the South in the Civil War, something like that. And those people are around. By the way, what does Ole Miss do? You think they're going to change their name?
That's a good question.
Isn't that what their mascot
is
about?
Yeah, they're the Rebels
from South.
Yep.
So,
yeah, they're going to have to
keep
do
an eye
something.
on that.
Yeah, because I saw a driver from Mississippi, Xfinity driver, his name skipped my brain now, was taking the Mississippi stuff off his car. Like sometimes they have like a flag from their state next to their name, and I'm not sure what Mississippi's state flag is, but it's got to have some kind of Confederate.
I think they probably do. Yeah,
lineage.
They always got like choices of which one you want. I guarantee you they've got one with the Confederate flag on it.
Yeah, so he's taking it off. Like I think South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, might too. So I agree. I mean, it doesn't serve any purpose. Like our flag is the United States flag.
The fact that it was still around was the thing that always never really got me interested in the topic too much, because I just always felt that, well, if it's still around, I guess there's a lot of people who carry it that aren't racist. Otherwise, how dumb is it to allow people who are racist to just flaunt their racism and get away with it?
Yep.
So, I mean, maybe this is something.
And that's basically what this is that they're not wanting the racism flaunt. And I agree with them. Kudos to them for getting that out of there. I mean, we don't need that on the ground. I mean, you won't see that in an NFL game. So NASCAR is just staying ahead of the curve. And I agree with that. I applaud them for that. If they're offended by that, then it's like you said, I feel sorry for them. It's probably good they go away anyways. Let's keep
That was just what I was going to say. In all the NASCAR races I've ever been to, all the IndyCar races, all the concerts, music concerts and everything I've ever attended, never once has it occurred to me, I'm going to a NASCAR race. I better, in order to fit in, grab my Confederate flag and put it on my car. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm going to get harassed. I agree. I think it's time. There have been calls for it for some time, and it flies in the face of their Drive for Adversity program as well. So they want to expand the competition. They want to expand the people that participate. They want to expand and reach out to new customers, just as Eric said. And if you're making some folks uncomfortable to come to the racetrack because a small population of the people that are there are racist because they're flying it, then absolutely you should get rid of those folks and bring in the ones who want to be there and are interested and will help the sport grow.
And by the way,
and let's be honest.
Go ahead, Eric.
Good. I was saying, and it's to me addition by subtraction, because if you look, it worked. LeBron James, Alvin Kamara, Bernard Pollard. I mean, all these NFL guys and NBA guys. Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter, granddaughter, something like that. If I'm not mistaken, they're all tweeting about NASCAR on Wednesday night for Martinsville. And Bernard Pollard was live tweeting the race. Alvin Kamara asking, when's the next one? I want to be there when I can be there next. I mean, it's turning into, you could get back to a more of a mainstream topic by having mainstream athletes jump on board. And they're like, a lot of saying, like, I didn't know that it was that big in the South. Like someone like they didn't know either. But then they see NASCAR taking that stance, like, I'm going to get behind you. Thank you. So I think it's going to help more than hurt. I mean, they're not missing anything getting rid of those fans anyway. So
it would be smart if they reached out to these athletes and figured out a way to get them to come to a race. Say, hey,
and I'm sure they will.
Let's come on. Because we want you here, and we can sit down and not only have a good 1 or 2 hour discussion that morning, but then we're gonna bring it over to the track. We're gonna watch a race, and you'll enjoy something for the first time. That whole kind of thing that hopefully will bring again the outside people that have never thought about going to a NASCAR race before. Again, whether they're black or not. Just for whatever reason, it just didn't want to go to a race because of perceived racism at the track, which hopefully this will help, which, of course, as you said, there's no way it won't. Okay, now, as far as this race here at Homestead, before we get into it, we have about 10 minutes. So, CJ, handicapping the race, much more difficult because this is
exceptionally
no longer the final race of the season.
Yeah, man, I've been racking my brain all week trying to think of how to approach this race because there are so many things that are different with it. In its traditional spot, which 4 guys you're going to be looking at and which ones are going to be the top choices because they're going to be going all out for the win. And that unique position on the calendar gives them something extra to strive for, and they pull out all the stops. Here, it's now a one-time track and in a completely different time of year. Like Eric alluded to earlier, it's going to be exceptionally hotter than it's probably ever been at this race. It's been run into the night. So they've never run this many miles. We talked about all the dehydration. They've never run this many miles back to back in this type of heat and humidity. It's during the day. There's no championship at stake. To me, this is like going to an entirely new track that almost nobody's ever raced at before. Not to mention the fact that when you look at Homestead in particular and just past driver statistics anyway, you don't have that many people that are multi-time winners. There's not a Jimmy Johnson that's out there with 9 wins. It's a pretty even track, and really it comes down to who wants it most at that one race at the end of the season. So for me, it's extremely difficult. I think I'm leaning on more recent momentum and recent pace that I've seen in recent 1.5 mile tracks. Not maybe so much necessarily, certainly not Daytona, but not necessarily so much the short tracks either. Really kind of looking at what people did in Charlotte, Atlanta, and Darlington heading into this weekend's race. It's going to be really, really challenging to pick the winner.
That's why, you and I have 3 similar picks this week. Jimmy Johnson, Chase Elliott, and Ryan Blaney. Even though Elliott doesn't have a whole lot of success here, he's never led a lap. Blaney's never led a lap, but we're going on recent history as opposed to what they've done at this track in the past when they've never arrived at this track at the end of a year with a chance to win a championship. And then I also noticed that none of us have a consensus pick. So all 3 of us have not taken one driver this week. So that's also interesting. My top pick is Denny Hamlin, and I'm the only one to take Denny Hamlin. So why is that, Eric?
I pretty much ran out of money. I would have went Denny Hamlin. I went with some of those favorites because Hamlin.
No, I must say this. I got to say this. You can tell a struggling handicapper a mile away when you take a look at his picks, and all of them are the favorites. They're like, I don't care what it takes. I need a win. I'm going to get that win this week, and then I'm going to go from there. And that's you took the top 3 drivers, Kyle, Truex, and Harvick.
That's exactly what I did. I'm just trying to break even this week. I just went with conservative. There's a reason they're the favorites. Hamlin, I was going to take him. I contemplated subbing him and Kyle, but because I mean Hamlin, if you look at like CJ said, that's how you got to look at this, and you just got to look at age surfaces too. This year, you got Fontana, Atlanta, and you look at the 2 races at Darlington. He's finished in the top 6 in all of them. He won one of them. Granted, flukish win in Darlington, but still he won. The last time Homestead was a race without the championship 4 per se, Hamlin won it in 2013 because. Since 2014, it's the winner of Homestead's always been a championship 4 driver. Nobody wants to wreck them. They race differently. You knew, like CJ said, going into that race, you had a 1 in 4 shot of winning if you just chose one of those drivers because nobody else is going to win it. Now you got Hamlin's the last one. He's starting on the pole. He's got clean air.
Isn't that a coincidence that he's had 3 straight poles when they actually tried for poles in qualifying, not by luck. 3 straight poles.
Yep.
And he's been in 3 straight poles. 4 out of the last 5 he's been on a pole. And then when they're matching this new way of qualifying based on positions and stuff, he gets the pole. So that's crazy.
Yep. He's the South Florida king. But hey, if you remember too, last year in the championship race, he was good for all the way up until that last run, and they put too much tape on, and he just almost blew up. He went backwards. So, and that race at the start was running the heat of the day. I mean, they're starting at the same time, except November nightfall is halfway through the race. Now there's no way that race is going to end under the lights. So it's going to stay hot and slick all the way through. I like the way you just go to Atlanta. Just last Sunday, hot, slick, 1.5 mile age surface. Gibbs had 3 of the top 5 finishers right there. And so, yes, I do believe Hamlin's going to be there. I just went off the need no win, went with the favorites. So, but I agree with your guys' pick. Hamlin's he's gonna be a factor.
And CJ, so out of the top 3 favorites, the only one you did go with was Harvick. So you chose Harvick instead of Truex and Kyle. Why?
He's been more consistent for me. We've seen Joe Gibbs drivers go up and down depending on the week. Eric's right with Atlanta. They ran really well. Hamlin's really good at this track as well. But to me, Harvick's just been more consistent, and he's been able to put himself in the top 5 every single week, regardless of the track. So rather than taking a chance on those 2 guys, any of the guys, bouncing back and forth, whether this is going to be an off week or an on week, Harvick was the one I felt more secure with in this type of circumstance.
Right, and Eric, just take a quick look at the 3 drivers, the 3 favorites, and why they're the favorites. 17 top 10s in 19 races for Harvick. 11 top 5s and a win, 6 straight top 5s. He's led at least 41 laps, 5 of the last 6 races. Truex in his last 3 races at Homestead, second, first, combined 201 laps led. And then Kyle, 7 top 10s in the last 8, 4 top 5s, a runner-up, and 2 wins. He's also, of course, the defending champ. He led 120 last year. He led 191 in 2012, and he didn't even win that week. So you really didn't show us who your top pick was based on those 3. Who's your top pick?
Harvick. I agree with CJ. I just feel like he's just more consistent than them, no matter the surface, no matter track. You take an age surface, that was my determining factor. He won in Darlington in the heat of the day, and he won in Atlanta in the heat of the day. So the most closest tracks I would say you could compare to this, he won those races, and it really wasn't close. He was dominant at both of those tracks. So I think that translates well over with how good he's been at Homestead in the past. So I think Kyle and Truex will give him a run for his money, but I don't think they're going to beat him in terms of speed. So I wouldn't be shocked. They finished 1, 2, 3 in Atlanta if you see a similar 1, 2, 3 on Sunday.
Right.
Just because Truex even said after he won in his Zoom press conference on Wednesday night that they're going to come to Homestead with the same approach as Atlanta. Bring the same stuff, run the same setup, run everything the same. And if you remember, he won both stages in Atlanta. He just kind of tailed off there in the end where Harvick got better. So I expect a very similar situation
and
Sunday
why did
afternoon.
you go with Keselowski out of the 3 Penske drivers?
Trust factor again. It almost paid off in Martinsville. Blaney came through, but I mean, he's got 6 straight top 10s on the season. Older surfaces, he's got 3 top 10s and 4 tries, 2 of them being top 5s. At Homestead, he hasn't won. And if you look at 1.5 mile or Homestead in general, we've got 9 different winners in the last 10 races on 1.5 miles on the season. And then a Homestead, I thought I had it written down here. But we got different winners for every year in the past. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Well, this is almost like
I
your pick,
say,
the way CJ and I talked about taking the hot driver, not necessarily their past history, because Keselowski's only led 24 laps or something like that, I think, somewhere around that. No, he led 86 laps in 2015 and finished third, but 21 laps over the other 11. So if you take out his one race in 2015, I mean, he's done nothing at this track. So you're also going with Keselowski based on how well he's raced recently.
That, and if you look at his recent stats, last year he was running good. He kind of tailed off. Something happened to him in last year's race. I can't remember exactly, but he ran good and tailed off. But you look at the years before, he wasn't really part of the championship 4. So he was kind of the best of the rest, per se. And he hasn't had a lot of championship 4 appearances. And then prior to the championship 4, other than 2012, he wasn't a championship guy either. So, he just kind of went the Homestead just trying to get the last race over with, but he's had decent stats. I mean, he's got 5 top 7s in his last 7 starts at Homestead, and with the recent history, good on older surfaces. I just trust him more this weekend. Plus, I can get him at 9 to 1.
That's right. That's the other thing too. 9 to 1 is pretty good odds for Keselowski the way he's racing. Quickly, 6 of the last 7 winners at this racetrack started in the top 5. Toyota's won 4 of the last 7. Toyota's won 4 out of 7. Ford has only won 1 out of the last 9, but we're kind of disregarding that based on again what we just talked about, the switch. Quickly, fans. We're going to get fans slowly returning officially at Talladega, correct?
Actually, I think there are fans, a couple hundred coming to Homestead this week.
People who know people.
1,000. Yeah.
They're invitees, but I guess today or this weekend will be the first. So
they're going to Talladega. They're going to give away a certain amount of tickets for people to call in and get tickets.
No, it's 7,000. 7,000. And if you had tickets, to the spring race,
you had tickets already.
And you have to live within 150 miles radius of the track.
That makes sense.
So, like if I had tickets but living in Indiana, I wouldn't be able to go. But they're stair-stepping it. So like they used like Homestead's capacity is 46,000. They let 1,000 first responders and military members in, like a low percentage. Talladega 78,000, so they thought 7,000 gets us between the 5,000 to 7,000 percentage if you count camping, hospitality, all that kind of stuff. And then the next one, they're just stair-stepping it up. So we'll see.
We don't even know when we're back on, right? We haven't discussed that yet. When's the
Not
next
yet.
race? Next Sunday?
Next Sunday at Talladega.
So we'll do something next week, maybe 2 races, 2 shows next week. Who knows? But we'll keep you updated. Follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN for that. And quickly, what do you got going on at RotoWire, CJ?
We've got a bunch of daily fantasy sports previews coming up. So putting out stuff for the trucks, the Xfinity race, and we'll have the Cup Series, all those before the starts. And then, as usual, after the Cup race, we'll have the NASCAR barometer up on rotowire.com.
And Eric, of course, you and CJ, you're going to have racereviewonline.com, and so you're going to have a lot of information that people could digest to handicap the race that we didn't even have time for on the show today. So they can go to your website or you can check out rotowire.com and follow CJ as well.
That's correct.
And lastly, bet on whether or not NASCAR drivers, after watching the golfers come off the course yesterday, and there was nobody with their handkerchiefs on getting interviewed, will they on Sunday stop with the handkerchiefs?
No.
Yeah, they are. That's part of the rule for the fans even coming to the stands. Which again, I do not envy the. They're first responders. Maybe they can all work on each other, but I don't want to be sitting in South Florida.
What's the difference between the golf and the
mask on
NASCAR
my
rules?
face.
Then what is it?
I just think they're trying. Maybe TV network.
Okay.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if that's what that's driven by, but
we'll talk about it more sometime next week. All right, guys, appreciate it. We went way over, but we'll be back again next week to talk more. Great show, guys. We'll see you, and hopefully we'll get a good race on Sunday.
Sounds
hopefully.
Good.